So my story, really quick. Grew up in a household. My name's Ralph all my life. My dad, walked out. Actually, my mom kicked him out. Clothes all over the lawn, turn around. I lived my life. I used to see him every now and then, didn't spend time with me. I chose to go in the military a month after I graduated from high school. About 3 years later, my dad died in the bed with a woman who was our next door neighbor when I was growing up. Like, he had a heart attack. And, but I knew that's who he was, right? That's why he and my mom didn't work out. So we go to the funeral. Long story short, girl shows up at the funeral, looks like me. Actually, I look like her. She's older. She says, I'm your sister. I'm like, okay, cool. And she's like, and there's 3 more of us, and I'm here for Richard's funeral. And I'm like, well, who's Richard? She's like, that's our dad. He's like, oh, my dad's named Ralph. She's like, no, his name's Richard. And in that moment, I found out that my dad had changed his name, came to Georgia, created another family, which was with my mom. So from that point on, the forgiveness, like, I was so hurt with unanswered questions. That's why I would say, man, like, pause, boom, put a bookmark. If your dad is around, get the questions answered. Like, hey, man, help me understand. Hey, help me understand. Like, why? Talk to me. If you can do it, right? Have the courage to do it. So I lived probably the next, honestly, I lived the rest of my life. Like, even till this summer, something happened. I was just like, oh, that's a point of forgiveness. But it was on Father's Day, and every father, are like, hey, man, celebrate me. This is my day. In a kind of prideful way, right? Like, kids, serve me. I'm your guy. And I read in the scriptures where it says, honor your father so that your days may be long. And in that morning, in my devotional time, God really convicted me. And so I went, at that time we were in Savannah. My dad's buried in Savannah. I went to his gravesite. And I called Dale Brooks, which is a mentor. He's gone home to be with the Lord now. And I said, Dale, I got to get this off of me, man, this burden, because I can't honor that guy. I can't do this. And he kind of led me through that moment. And at my dad's gravesite, I released him. That's what forgiveness is. Yeah. It's a release. Like, you don't owe me anything. Forgive the debt. Bro, you don't owe me anything. I'm done holding on to this pain. Well, Frank, what had happened before then was the pain. My kids were eating the fruit of my bitterness. So I was a jerk to my kids. I was a jerk to my wife because I was so busy looking back at what I didn't have. That's why your rearview mirror is smaller than your windshield, because your past is smaller than the future that God has for you. So if you're a man and you're looking back trying to reconcile the pain and you can't do it, man, ask God to help you release your father, right? And so my wife told me one day, she's a part of my story, a big part of my story. She said, Ralph, and I was losing it one day at the house, whatever, slamming stuff, acting like a jerk. And she said, hey, just really quick, if you want our kids to ever come back home and feel safe here, you probably want to stop doing that. And it was as if God was speaking to me, man. Like, bro, you're recreating the pain and the hurt that you experienced. So from there, I released my dad. I walked it out. And this summer, I was listening to someone tell their story, and she said what Jesus said on the cross. She said, you remember with Jesus on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. She was talking about her mom and her dad, whatever. And she kept saying, they didn't know. They didn't know. My dad didn't know what he was doing to hurt me, bro. He wasn't intentionally hurting me.
Probably modeling what he had seen.
That's it. And when I look at his story, but for the sake of time, we don't have time to go into that. Like, and that's what I help men do. Like, let's do some family mapping. Like, who was your dad? And who was his dad? What were they doing? Like, how Because some of this stuff is passed down. Like, it's just like generation to generation. Like, he only did what he thought he was supposed to do. He didn't have a model. So how could he model something for me, right? He's just like I am. And he needed a relationship with his Heavenly Father so that he would know how to be a son that could father.
How has that changed your relationship with your boys today? You have,
3 kids.
men.
I got 2 boys and a girl and 2 grandkids. Grandkids are the greatest, by the way.
This story sounds like it's happened more recent. So, you were past the age of having young boys. You had young men as sons. How has your relationship with them changed since that releasing with your father?
Yeah, it has changed tremendously because I started to discover what unconditional love and grace is, not only for me, but for those who I'm responsible for. So my boys, we hang out together. We go to games together. We text each other, talk on the phone. My daughter, we have a very intimate relationship. And I try to be where my feet are, right? I just try to show up for them, right? I was the dad that coached everything, but that didn't mean I was like really present, right? Many times I was just trying to give them what I didn't have, right? And it was a lot of times selfish, right? Like, I like sports, so I'm just, But then I started to learn, like, no, man, I want to be where you are. You don't like football? That's cool. If you want to go play tennis or golf, I want to be where you are. If you want to go hang out in Orlando, I want to be where you are. Like, how can you and I just continue to have a relationship? And it's been great, Frank. Like, it really has been great, because my greatest impact in this generation will be the salvation of my children. Not the men that I get to lead and disciple and whatever. And that's great. I discovered that concept recently when I was reading the scriptures in Hebrews 12:6. And I've already written the curriculum for this in the book. But I think God calls every man, because I was always looking for a man in the Bible. I'm like, where's a guy that had a family that we can kind of, like, where's that example? Like, Jesus, yeah, great, the best example. But he didn't have a family, right? It says this in Hebrews 12. It said, Noah, being warned by God, built an ark to save himself and his family. And it leaped off the page. Like, it right between the eyes. He built an ark to save himself and his family. Like, why did I go read the story of Noah? Noah's a righteous man in a wicked generation. It never says that Noah's wife was righteous. All my biblical scholars out there. It says that Noah was a righteous man, and God chose not to destroy the earth because of his righteousness. So if Noah was righteous, and I'm not saying his wife was wicked, but it doesn't say that. He had 3 sons and their wives, and he got all of them to get on the ark. And he saved humanity. Everyone else was destroyed. Everything else was destroyed. So as a man, my greatest accomplishment is to get my wife, my kids, their wives or husbands, and my grandkids on the ark. This place of safety, to build an ark around them so that they know Dad's safe. You can be around him. It's cool. So that I see them again when we're all with our Heavenly Father. So build an ark. That's what we're called to do as men, is to build an ark. And I'll share this last story with you, and it drove this point home. There's a young lady that I know through a leadership thing, whatever. But one of the things she said was she chose to go into the homosexual lifestyle because her dad wasn't safe. So she always saw women as a place of safety. Like, they nurture, they care. But my dad was mean and ugly to me. He rejected me. So I went where I was accepted. There's that word from earlier, your first question. Where am I accepted and received? that's where I'll be. And so as a father, it's important for us to embrace our kids.